Yes, it is Super Wild Card Weekend in the National Football League. It is one of the two best weekends of the year, in my opinion. When you have Super Wild Card Weekend here, and then we'll have Divisional Weekend coming up next week. 6 games over 3 days, 12 teams as we get ourselves down through till the end of the season. Nick, these 6 matchups we've all seen already at some point throughout the season already. So it should be very, very fun to watch. There's already a lot of storylines heading into these 6 games and a couple of storylines right out of the gate before we even get into them. And of course, folks, we are now in the postseason, and that means that the overtime rules are going to be different this year. And it was actually, I remember this because this was one of the first topics that we had talked about on Game On. So in the playoffs now, both teams must possess the ball. So what that's going to create is a little bit of interesting strategy for the coaches. They're already talking about would it be best to either receive or defer, and I guess it's probably best to get the. I'm wondering, what do you think about it? Is it best to get the ball first or second? See, for me, I think it's probably better to get it second because you would already know what your opponent does right out of the gate, right?
It really doesn't matter because both teams are going to possess. It's just, do you want to make the score, put the pressure on the team to put the ball in the end zone or kick a field goal first, or do you want to wait and see? Now, it might be some pressure to put second because then you might have to put the ball all the way down to the end zone on the other side of the field.
But then at the same time, you might already know what you need to do versus what, instead of, let's say you have the ball first and it's 4th and 1 on the 20, do you go for it or do you just kick the field goal to guarantee? Whereas if you get the ball second and it's 4th and 1 in that spot and knowing that a field goal will win it, that's what you have to decide. So it'll if we do get an overtime game in the postseason, it's going to be very, very fun to watch. Unfortunately, I remember when we talked about this, that this seems like it was more like the NFL being reactive instead of proactive. I still feel like in all sports, the best overtime is college football. With both teams possessing on the 25-yard line, and after 2 OTs, you have to go for 2 throughout. So
they don't want the game to end early. They're trying to avoid the punt. Well, not the punt, the kickoff for a run back for 100 yards, and the overtime is over. That's what I think they're doing here, even though it's very rare that you see kickoffs anywhere, whether it's in regulation or not. You really, because of the rules, you can't really get a ball back to the other side of the end zone anymore on a kickoff. So, but that's what I think they're doing. They're trying to avoid or even if it's not a kickoff, like you make one long throw and then they score a touchdown, it's over. I think that's what they're trying to do. Yeah, they want both teams to touch it.
I kind of feel like the first game I think about when you talk about that was the overtime game between the Steelers and the Broncos with Tim Tebow. But it's very, very rare. But since 2010, there have been 12 overtime playoff games, and teams who won the coin toss are 10-2 in those games. Although 7 of the 12 who won the coin toss won in their first possession without the other team possessing the ball. So,
yeah, that's what I think they're trying to avoid. Because if you are going to put all that time in, you play 4 quarters, and then you play an overtime, and it ends on a 1 play. Even though that's your fault as a defense, if you don't, and as special teams, if you don't stop them. But what the NFL's in the game of the money business. They want to sell more commercials. They want to sell more time. So to them, if they get an extra possession out of it, they can add a whole full slate of commercials in there if they want it.
Yeah, you don't see many commercials though in OT, and no matter what sport it is. But nevertheless, we will see what happens here. It's going to be a very, very fun weekend. And one other bit of news before we get to our picks for Wild Card Weekend is we did find out that the NFL announced that Atlanta's Mercedes-Benz Stadium will be the neutral site for a conference championship game between the Bills and the Chiefs if both of them get to that point. So interesting spot because a lot of people were expecting it to be an outdoor cold weather venue, considering that the Bills and the Chiefs obviously play in this time of the year in cold weather cities. But you know what? I don't know. I don't know what to make of this. What do you think?
People need to stop complaining, in my opinion, because believe it or not, this is a dome stadium. Okay, they want dome stadiums. Now, let me ask you a question. With all the weather issues we dealt with, including you and I were talking about the whole thing in New York with the issues with the Super Bowl. Now, part of that could be blamed on mass transit issues and a bunch of other issues with the city. But do you really want to deal with snow and rain and an outdoor stadium, which makes an ugly game? No one wants to see a 9-3 game in the playoffs. Even though you and I might want to see a defensive shootout, but the fans want to see offensive shootouts. So if you go in a dome, the weather doesn't affect you. You can make it 65, 70 degrees inside a dome stadium, and we'll get to see a 35-28 game instead. And then you get to see the offenses shootout. So I get why they're doing it. Atlanta's a great area. There's a lot of great hotels, restaurants, entertainment. It's more the atmosphere. They could care less about if it's in a natural atmosphere as opposed to a dome.
Yeah, I think what happened up in Buffalo earlier this season was just a freak thing when we had they had 6 to 7 feet of snow and the Bills had to play that game before Thanksgiving at Ford Field in Detroit. Again, I think it's just a very fluke thing. But you know what? If you want a neutral site, Atlanta's pretty neutral between the Bills and the Chiefs if we do get there. And we'll find out. Of course, they have to get there first before we even have this conversation.
Right. And that's why I think people are jumping to conclusions even though that's probably going to happen the way the teams are. The Chiefs are one of the best teams. The Bills are one of the best teams. People need to relax. It's a game. It's not the Super Bowl. We already know the Super Bowl is going to be in Arizona. Okay, we knew that. And to be honest, I think at this point they should just keep the Super Bowl in Arizona because even though they keep moving it all around, but it seems like Arizona seems to be the best place to have the Super Bowl. It seems like these days at that college football stadium. I forgot which one it is, but was it University of Arizona? I think.
Yeah.
But I think people are just panicking over something stupid. Like, first we got to get there.
Yeah. And it's no guarantee. You know what? I still want to pass the Bengals to make it a very interesting ride here in the AFC for sure. But nevertheless, Nick, 6 games during Wild Card weekend. I know I'm not going to get a lot of sleep this weekend, but it is a very, very exciting time, especially when one of your teams is actually in the playoffs this year. But as we enter the postseason here, Hank and I actually finished the regular season separated by just one game. I finished up at 128, 132, and 11, and Hank was one game behind at 127, 133, and 11. So yes, folks, we did finish like the NFC South, under 500, but we are still winners regardless.
Did you finish in the red?
Yes, I did finish under 500. So I mean, we both did have winning weeks in week 18. I went 8-7-1, and Hank went 11-4-1. So hopefully some momentum as we get into the postseason. But like I said, 6 games, 12 teams, and we will see what happens here in the Super Wild Card weekend. So you ready to do this thing, Nick?
Let's go.
All right, and we head out west in game number 1 on Saturday afternoon, and it is a Joe Davis, Daryl Moose Johnston, Pam Oliver, Christina Pink special on Fox. It's an NFC West playoff matchup as Geno Smith and the Seattle Seahawks take on Brock Purdy and the San Francisco 49ers. And the 49ers are a 9.5-point home favorite at Levi Stadium.
See, I get worried about large lines in the playoffs because, again, points will be scored, but also defenses are tighter in the playoffs. Even if you have the worst defense, the defenses step up in the playoffs. It's like when you go to the MLB postseason and the pitching, even at its worst, becomes 10 times better because everyone is at a major focus. You don't see balls flying out of the ballpark. You don't see runs being scored at a high clip. So I think of the NFL the same way. Now, you were saying before we started, there's an interesting quarterback matchup, Purdy and Geno Smith. I think that's the only mismatch that is in the favor of Seattle in this whole thing. I think the defense is better for San Francisco. I think the offense is better for San Francisco. I think the running back situation for San Francisco is better with McCaffrey, who's had a resurgence since he got traded there. But the interesting thing is they're going to win. I'm going to say that right up top because I just think they're a better team. But with a hook, obviously, with a half point, 9.5, the 10 point. 10 points is a lot. In the playoffs, 10 points is a lot. So they're going to win. I'm going to take the Niners to win, but I don't have them cover it. I think Seattle will somehow cover this and make it a close game, but I think San Fran is too much for Seattle.
Yeah, you and I are sharing a brain here in game number one, and there's quite a few high spreads this weekend. But when I look at this matchup, yeah, clearly San Francisco's the better team all the way around. When you look at receiving core, running back, defensively, in fact, it looks like the 49ers might be getting their healthiest on offense with Deebo Samuel and Elijah Mitchell there. So maybe the screen game is going to be a big play in this one for them. I just really wonder now, and maybe this might be a week too early in asking this, but Brock Purdy hasn't done this. This is a new animal now. You enter the postseason. He's been put in a very favorable spot, and he's done a great job there. But, now you enter the postseason, which is an entirely new animal. And, uh, you look at the Seahawks, and Pete Carroll has been through this before. Now, this is an entirely different team. Geno Smith's been one of the best stories of the year, and so have the Seahawks really as well. I mean, there's a lot of great stories this year that we are going to see in the postseason. But there's one other element also that I'm going to add into this game, which is why I'm going to take Seattle plus the points. I don't think they're going to win this game, but I think they will cover, is the weather. California has had a lot of rain in the last couple of weeks, and it's supposed to rain during this game too, and maybe that does slow it down a bit. And maybe you get a little bit of a lower scoring, closer game than you would. And even if Seattle can get a backdoor cover in this spot, is certainly possible, because you're asking San Francisco to win by 10. I think in some of these games that's not going to be a problem, but I think it's not going to happen here. So 49ers will win this game, but I think Seattle is going to keep it close, maybe like within a touchdown even. So I'm going to take Seattle plus the 9.5. The weather will be a big reason why I will take Seattle plus the points.
We're talking about floods in California. We're talking about water levels that California hasn't seen in years? I mean, or decades? Like, we're talking about massive water. Now, we don't know if it's around the area where in Santa Clara where the stadium is, but I think 10 points is a lot in the playoffs. It's a lot.
Actually, if the weather was not a factor, I actually think San Fran would win by 10 points. But also, I'm really wondering now, Brock Purdy in the playoffs, as like I said, it's a different animal. But he's got the right team where he doesn't have to do a lot with the running backs, with the receivers. I mean, the screen game, like I said before, I think could be a factor and could be helpful here too. But
but they allow him to take chances, though, unlike a certain team that I've been a fan of for a long time. Mm-hmm. They allow their quarterback to make throws. They allow their quarterback to run the offense. Now, I get it. He was Mr. Irrelevant. He was the last pick in the draft. I understand. But you have to allow the quarterback to breathe and make plays. And that's the difference. He's got a great team. When you have guys like Kittle and McCaffrey and Deebo, the pressure is off you as a quarterback.
Yeah, agree. And we'll see. Hank also, by the way, does have Seattle plus the points. He is saying that spread does scare him too, the division rival. They've played twice already. It was 48-20. The combined score that the 49ers beat the Seahawks by in those first two matchups. Sometimes it felt like it was a little bit more lopsided than that, but we're in the playoffs now. So all three of us will agree here. We're all going to take the 49ers to win, but we're going to grab the 9.5 with Seattle on Saturday afternoon at Levi Stadium. Hey, Nick, he's back. And what I mean by that is it is, in fact, an Al Michaels, Tony Dungy, Kaylee Hartung special on NBC on Saturday night as Justin Herbert and the Los Angeles Chargers take on Trevor Lawrence and the Jacksonville Jaguars. And the Chargers are a 2.5-point road favorite.
Wait a minute. Did I miss something? Al Michaels is back on NBC?
So Al Michaels, if you remember when earlier in the season, it was announced that he does have an emeritus role with NBC. So that's why he will make a return to the network's booth on Saturday for the Jaguars-Chargers game. So that's why he is there. So it is an Al, Tony, and Kaylee special on NBC.
Wow. You shocked me. I didn't even read that anywhere. Usually I do, but
that's why I'm here.
Yeah. No. Hey, besides the picks, you come up with things I don't know. But I don't know if you and I are going to be thinking on the same wavelength on this one, but I'm taking the Jaguars in an upset special against the Chargers. And I did this on my show. I'm even going to do it here. Yes. Upset special. The Chargers have a unique situation going on down there in Los Angeles. Brandon Staley what is going on, Brandon Staley? His decision-making skills are off. What are you doing starting Williams and Allen in a meaningless game in week 18? And now Mike Williams is out for the playoff game because what did you say? So originally he went in for an MRI and then they found out he had a back injury.
So he was dealing with a back issue. That's why he missed some of the game last Sunday. And he originally went for an MRI, and the initial MRI came back clean, but there was more testing done on Friday, and it showed that he actually is dealing with a fracture in his back. So it's looking more like Mike Williams is not only going to be out for this week, but if the Chargers advance, he could be out multiple weeks.
It's a big deal. You don't have one of your big wide receiver weapons. Now, Keenan Allen, who I've liked in fantasy and I've liked over the years, they're just gonna double team him. That's gonna remove him as an option off the field if Mike Williams doesn't play. Eckler's nice, but he can't do everything either. I know he can RPO. They can use him as a receiver option. They can use him as a run option. I'm just worried the Jaguars are playing way better than we expected. Would you say so?
Oh, absolutely. To go from 3-14 to now in the playoffs winning the AFC South, I mean, it's one of the quickest and best turnarounds we've seen in recent history.
Also, Trevor Lawrence looks like a much different quarterback than he does a year ago.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that has to do with Doug Peterson. So you're going to take the Jaguars plus the 2.5 here.
I'm going to take the Jaguars plus 2.5. I think they come out. One, it's at home for the Jaguars. I think that helps. I don't know what the splits were for the Chargers on the road and at home. I don't think they probably were a worse road team than they were a home team, but that's mostly every team. But I think it's the time for Trevor Lawrence. I think it's the time for them to step up and win. And if that happens, Brandon Staley's going to get fired by the Chargers, and that whole regime is going to get changed over next year.
Well, that is a big thing that we're going to be watching for in this game is if indeed if the Jaguars do pull this off, is Brandon Staley's future. And you know that I have not been high on him. I've been high on the Chargers all year. And one of the things, I mean, it's even actually Mason to think that they actually won 10 games this year because they were injury plagued. And you know, every team gets hurt. I get that. But they were missing key guys throughout the season. We saw earlier in the year, Justin Herbert had that rib issue that seemed to linger on for a few extra weeks. Mike Williams has been in and out of the lineup. Now he's out again. Keenan Allen's been in and out of the lineup too. So some big guys there. Bosa is back though. I think that is a big deal for the Chargers. Chargers were 5-3 at SoFi Stadium and 5-4 on the road.
Oh wow! So it's essentially an even split.
Yeah.
Which, according to that doesn't even make them sound like they're a good team, to be honest with you.
And if you want to just say for the heck of it, they are a +7 point differential for the season. Jacksonville, by the way, was a +54, if that means anything.
Well, it just goes to show you that they were more efficient. But, yeah, I think the Chargers are in trouble, and then Staley's going to get fired. That's me.
And you also could take earlier in the season, remember these two met at SoFi Stadium, and the Jaguars blew them out. Now, that was a depleted Chargers team, but nevertheless, they did the job. Hank also has taken the Jaguars plus the 2.5, and he's doing that because Trevor Lawrence is him, according to him.
Obviously, I had a feeling that was coming, but I would just be worried about Staley with my guys. Like, if they're hurt. We saw this earlier in the year with Herbert, with the rib injury, that he kept putting him back in there. What are you doing? Take him out.
Yeah. No, I don't get what that is. I'll give you a fun fact here, by the way, about Trevor Lawrence. He's never lost on a Saturday in high school.
I just saw that. Yeah.
Or the NFL. So,
I mean,
you could say he's due, but
let's be careful though, because the NFL playoffs are a totally different scenario. That's why I'm taking the Jaguars to upset, not just cover, because again, anything in a pick-em, you either are going to take them to win or take them to lose. You're not going to take them as a cover.
22-20 Jacks, to 22-20 LA.
I know, but that's tough. But I just think the Jaguars are set up to win. I don't know if the Chargers are at this point. The Mike Williams injury is major.
It is. I agree with that. And there's no question that a significant advantage for the Jaguars in this spot is the coaching. And it just seems like everybody wants to take the Jaguars. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take the Chargers. And I'll tell you why I'm taking the Chargers here to win and cover in this spot. Their defense, I think, is going to cause Trevor Lawrence to have some problems in this one. They're healthier than they've been all year. They're built to slow down the pass. And let's also remember, too, as great as Trevor Lawrence has been this year, he was not that great last week. And what really helped Jacksonville to beat the Titans was their defense. And they could be more of a lower scoring game because of that. But their offense recorded 1 first down on their final 5 drives before their defense, which has been improving.
But it was week 18, though.
Right. It was. Absolutely. And I think Travis Etienne's going to have a good spot in this one, but that defense for the Chargers, which is healthier than they've been in quite some time, could be the healthiest it's been all year, I think is going to cause havoc for Trevor Lawrence. So it could be a very, very close game. I'm looking at maybe like a 1-score game here as well, but I think it's going to be on the Chargers side too. And I normally would say you take the team with the better coach, and that clearly is with Jacksonville, but I'm going to roll the dice here, and I'm going to take the Chargers to win and cover there and in Jacksonville. But Nick, I think you've said this best. I think you'll mention it next week on your show. I'm sure we'll mention it on Game On next week too, that if the Chargers do pull this out, then Brandon Staley's future in LA has got to be questioned, because the Chargers have a good enough team to make a deep run. I said on our show, and I said to you guys, to you and Tom, when we did our football preview show, that I loved the Chargers going into the season. So they've got the team. Now, Mike Williams being out, that's a big deal, but I still think they have just enough to get this done. So I'm going to roll with LA minus the 2.5 to win and cover on Saturday night.
I just thought it was interesting also that the pick'em is slated to the road team. You don't see that very often in a pick'em situation with a spread.
Yeah. Now, if this is Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern, we're also talking about a different store, because that's a 10 a.m. spot. Now, I don't think that matters much as in years past, but
well, it's in Jacksonville, but
yeah, I think this is just about right. I mean, it's pretty much, you're talking about a 3-point game on either side here. That's what it is. So I think this is right, and I think the Chargers are the better team. The question marks are just going to be with the coaching, and that could come down to something in this spot here too. But I think a lot of people are they're talking about that, but they're not talking enough about this Charger defense, which is the healthiest it's been all season long. And I think Trevor Lawrence, and he's been great this year, I think he's actually going to have some problems in this game. I think he's going to have some problems. So
I think this is going to go back and forth all game, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't think either team could blow the other one out. I'd be very surprised if it was that, but I think it's going to be a good one there Saturday night. And you know what? Again, from 3-14 to hosting a playoff game, it's been one heck of a turnaround. Another one of the best stories of the year, the Jaguars, and we'll see if they can keep it going against the Chargers on Saturday night. Nick, it's a Jim Nantz, Tony Romo, Tracy Wolfson, Jay Fieldy special on CBS as the Miami Dolphins with Skylar Thompson under center take on Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. And that's not a typo, folks. The Buffalo Bills are near 2-touchdown favorite at home on Sunday afternoon.
This had an opportunity to be one of the best games. And when I say opportunity, if everything was healthy, everyone was healthy. If you had Tua against Josh Allen, you had the weapons. You had Tyreek Hill and Waddle, which would have been insane watching with Tua against Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs and all that. But with Tua, yeah, and you and I could spend an hour talking about the Tua situation with the concussions. And by the way, I can't believe they were trying to put him back out on the field. Were you?
Desperation, Nick. Not really. I mean, they're desperate.
You're telling me you would put him back out on the field?
No, I'm not saying I would, no. But I'm talking about the organization, because they realize how much of a drop-off it is. I mean, they scored 9, well, technically 11, but, I mean, that game against your Jets last week was a hard watch.
I know, but it's just reasons. But everyone on ESPN, all the NFL analysts, a lot of the other NFL analysts I saw across the sports networks, they're saying, how the heck can you put Tua out there considering all the... And by the way, they're saying technically he could have had 4 concussions this season.
Yeah, you know what? There might have to be an investigation opened up into that, but I don't know.
Without Tua, first of all, with Tua, it would have been a tough up road to beat Josh Allen and the Bills. But with Skylar Thompson going into Orchard Park in New York, never being in a playoff situation before. There's no way that the Dolphins are beating the Bills. That's a huge ask out of Skylar Thompson to lead this team into Buffalo to win. And also Buffalo defense is better. I think the Buffalo offense is even a threat here. Stephon Diggs is top 3 wide receiver this year, up there with Justin Jefferson. Okay, so I think without Tua, this is a foregone conclusion with the spread, and I would say take the money here. This is the one of the few that I'm actually taking a cover here.
Yeah, so let's just put it this way. If Tua was in there, first off, the Bills would not be laying 13.5. It was 2 under center. Number 2, I would take the Dolphins plus the points if Tua was there. And the only reason why you could give Skylar Thompson a chance to at least cover in this spot, I think, is familiarity, meaning that this is obviously the third time that these two teams have played each other. So that could be a factor here too. And we saw when these two last played up in Buffalo that the Dolphins did cover that spread, but they limped to the finish line, Miami. And I mean, even if Teddy Bridgewater, let's say, was starting this game, I could give the Dolphins a chance to cover and attack Buffalo's weakness in the secondary. But I mean, the Dolphins they have offense, but they don't have the right guy throwing them the ball, and they just don't have enough pass rushers up front to bother Josh Allen. Nick, this game has 35-13 written all over it. I don't think there's much else that needs to be added. The other thing I would say regarding this game would be it would be an unbelievable sight if we could see Damar Hamlin maybe make an appearance in this game, meaning, maybe leading the team out some way. I mean, you want to talk about emotional. I mean, we thought last week was emotional with Nyheim Hines 2 kickoff returns for touchdowns, and don't be surprised you can do another one of those in this game with the Dolphins. But you want to talk about emotional, it's going to raise it to a whole nother level. It's going to be loud, it's going to be electric, and I mean, the Bills are just clearly the better team. I just don't see how there's any way possible that Miami can keep this game close. It'll be one of those spots where you say opening kickoff and the game is over. So give me Buffalo laying the near 2 touchdowns against the Dolphins in Orchard Park. And Hank also is taking the Bills, and he says even though that might be risky because of the division rival, like I was saying, with Skylar Thompson, he's more confident that they will cover. So it's going to be a clean sweep for the 3 of us up there in Orchard Park.
The one thing I would say, though, and not that I hate calling for people's jobs in an unfortunate situation, but when they lose, the medical staff needs to be fired too. They need to be fired because they have not handled the Tua situation well this whole season. 3 concussions, they put him back out on the field?
Like I said, maybe there's an investigation or something has to be discussed.
And you can't blame McDaniels. McDaniels is going based off the data that the medical staff is given.
Yeah, this is not on McDaniel, who I thought was going to be a possibility for Coach of the Year there in the AFC, but I think Doug Peterson's got to get a shot there too. But the Dolphins are there. They just need the quarterback, and I kind of wonder maybe if Lamar Jackson might be in play for Miami next season. Because they're there. I mean, they've got the guys. I mean, they've got Gesicki at tight end. They've got Tyreek Hill. They've got Jalen Waddle. So
we'll get to Lamar and the Ravens in a few.
Yep, we will get that, and that's going to be an interesting spot too. So clean sweep for all of us up in Buffalo between the Dolphins and the Bills on Sunday afternoon. Nick, it's a Kevin Burkhardt, Greg Olsen, Aaron Andrews, Tom Rinaldi special on Fox, and this is a special. It's my New York Football Giants going back to Minnesota to take on Kirk Cousins, Justin Jefferson, and the Minnesota Vikings, and the Vikings are laying a field goal at home. Oh, you want me to go first? Okay, sure. So I look at this line seems about right. You know what? We saw this before. If this game is a neutral site, they basically telling you that's a pick'em game. So I think the Vikings being favored by 3 is the right call here. But I'll tell you what, and I'm going to try and put my fandom aside in making this pick. I am taking the Giants in an upset special because their defense, to me, I think is going to cause a lot of problems for Kirk Cousins and the Vikings. But Cousins gets hit more than any other quarterback in football. We saw that just 3 weeks ago when the Giants played there. And here's a thing to watch for too. The Giants injury report on Friday came out. It is clean. So everybody's going to be in there, including Adoree Jackson and Xavier McKinney, who were not there 3 weeks ago. and Dexter Lawrence dominating with Leonard Williams and Kayvon Thibodeau and Azeez Ojulari. This is where I think we see Don Wink Martindale, we see Brian Dable, the coaching staff, prove why they are the best team. So when the Giants have the ball, you give them the edge. I think Daniel Jones just does just enough to give the Giants a win. This is going to be a very, very close one. You know what? This is going to be Giants playoff football where you're going to be sweating a lot through this game. It's going to be very nerve-wracking. They're in a win-win spot no matter what because nobody in their right mind thought they were going to be in this spot. So even if this could come down to a field goal like it did a couple of weeks ago, but there's just so many things, and there's no question that Minnesota's got the better offensive talent, but there's a reason why they finished the season in the red. They have a lot of problems. They're not good defensively, and you know what, Nick? Let's do it. Let's pull out the Kirk Cousins checklist because in the fourth quarter, this game's going to be at 7 p.m. Eastern. It'll be 6 p.m. I know it's going to be in a dome, but it'll technically be dark and it'll technically be in prime time. Is the game in prime time? It will be late. Is the game going to be is this a nationally televised game? It sure is. So upset special. Give me the Giants plus the 3, and they're going to pull this one out against the Vikings in Minnesota.
Wait, what time is the game?
It is a 4:40 p.m. Eastern kickoff. So
Okay.
3:40 Central. So
it's technically not a primetime game.
it will be in the fourth quarter. It'll be 7 p.m. here, 6 o'clock there, and it'll be dark.
Oh, you're talking. Now you're being technical in the fourth quarter.
Technical, yes. That's why I said fourth quarter it will be.
Because I was like, wait a minute, 7 o'clock. I was like, okay, wait a minute.
And Hank, by the way, my fellow Giant fan, is taking the Vikings to win and cover.
Like I said, I think this is going to be as close. I think this is going to be the closest game of all the wild card games this weekend. It'll be interesting to see if Saquon comes out after all the injury issues over the last couple of years. Can he put up 100, 120 yards and really carry this team? This game is going to run through him. Now, that's going to be the issue because the Vikings are going to play stack box most of this game. They're going to stop that run and force Daniel Jones to throw that ball to the, and I hate to say this, but non-existent wide receiver weapons. They're going to force that ball to Slayton, who has most drops in the NFL this year.
Well, I guess somebody had to be.
It's an unfortunate statistic.
Somebody had to be Evan Ingram this year, right?
Hey, ironically, in Jacksonville.
He's had a good year down there, too. Yep.
But Slayton scares me a little just with all the drops. They paid him a lot of money. I thought it was funny last week when you said Galladay actually made a touchdown catch or a catch last week.
Yep. Week 18 with Davis Webb, but I think it also goes to show you, too, how great the Giants have been that game close, too.
I don't know. Do you see him playing in the playoff game?
I think he's got, I don't know. But you're going to have Slayton. You're going to have Hodgins, who's come along great this year.
They're playing good football.
Bellinger.
But if I'm going to Minnesota, if I'm going to take my chances and force Daniel Jones to throw the football down the field and basically put a stopgap on Saquon running the football, they're going to win the game if they can keep Saquon from running the football because that's the weapon the Giants have. Again, I think it's going to be a field goal game. It's going to come down to, hey, the last matchup was Joseph hitting a 61-yard field goal, which was probably improbable in most instances.
Yeah, if that's outdoors, he's not making that.
Exactly.
He's been awful. And don't kid yourself, ever since that game, he's been awful. So
I know. Yeah. So I think it's going to be a barely cover 3, 24-21 Minnesota. It comes down to a field goal kick.
So Giants, and their season ends in heartbreak. That's certainly possible. And look, I say this too, and as somebody, and I said this on Game On Tuesday, and I'll say it here too. I look at the 12 teams that are in this postseason. I think the Giants are probably the least talented of the 12 teams that are in there. There's no question. But
let me preface it with one thing. If the Giants win, I wouldn't be shocked either. So let me just make sure I say that.
No, but see, the reason why, and I say this, the Giants are probably the least talented of the 12 teams that are playing this weekend, but they probably have, they have one of the best head coaches and the best system of the 12 teams, which is what gives them a chance in this one, in my opinion. And again, the Vikings with 13 wins with a minus point differential. Now, I mean, they're not the only team that's going to the playoffs here that with a minus point differential, but there's just something to that. It's just cannot be ignored.
Look at the team you're playing.
Yeah.
But I was going to say also, you also have a long-term future with a coach, with your head coach for the
Right.
first time in a long time.
Yeah. And I think they're going to have $58 million in cap space after this season too. So that's
Is that
why
a-
you're only going to be getting better after this. This is a foundation.
Does that include the Galladay number coming off or no?
I think it does.
So that's major because I don't think he's coming back. So
Yeah. And I know you were talking about it too, possibly. The Giants have, when we get into the offseason talk with the Giants, you're going to be talking about Daniel Jones. You're going to talk about Saquon Barkley. You're going to be talking about them possibly. You're going to have to go out there and get a couple of receivers. I mean, I know there was a rumor you were saying about DeAndre Hopkins. I'm not as high on that. The guy I'm looking at is DJ Chark there in Detroit because you know what? He's probably not going to cost you a lot. He's a good young receiver there in Detroit. A lot of the free agent receivers in football this offseason are veteran guys, and I just don't think the Giants necessarily need that. They need a playmaker, but the guys they have right now, they have depth. Remember, they have Wan'Dale Robinson, and hopefully he can come back and be the guy that he was before he tore his ACL against Detroit earlier in the season.
that was unfortunate. That was a hard luck injury.
Yeah, I mean, at the MetLife turf, and then also the fact that he had been playing really well right before that injury too. But I mean,
I also think they should call the Panthers still on DJ Moore. I know the Panthers are being stubborn, but you're just going to keep losing value if you don't trade him.
Hey, I would love DJ Moore on the Giants. That'd be great. I just don't know if Carolina's ready to give up on him because if that was the case, they would have gave up on him this past year.
Their whole year was a throwaway. I'm surprised they didn't trade him. They could have gotten 2 firsts if they did it.
Oh, clearly, yeah. I mean, I think, and that's still a possibility too. But Carolina, they're also looking at the possibility this year that next year that division is once again going to be weak because nobody there is really ready to take the next step. And what if? And we're going to get to the Bucs, but what if, let's say, Tom Brady runs it one more time, has one more run in him, and
he's got to go. He's got to go at that point. And I'm not saying for a negative reason. Like he's just got to go if he wins.
The capper in his career would be the only under 500 team to win a Super Bowl, and he takes them there.
He's got to go off to the Fox booth at that point. And
yeah, unfortunately, poor Greg Olson will be demoted to the second team or so. But
oh, please.
But we'll see there. So I'm going to be the lone wolf of the three of us, and I'm going to take the Giants plus the 3 in an upset special. And Nick and Hank are both going to take the Vikings. But I think we all agree it's probably one of the better games, one of the closer games of the weekend in Minnesota.
And like I said, if they win, I wouldn't be surprised either.
Absolutely. And we will react to that and all this stuff coming up on our next show.
I just think, though, that if they win, I still think it's going to be a one and done. Because once you get past it, what are they going to get? The Eagles, most likely, if they win?
I'm trying to... 6.
We discussed it on ETB. I think it'd be the Eagles.
I believe so. Yeah, because they would be the lowest seed because then the Seahawks. We're assuming that San Fran is going to beat the Seahawks.
Yeah.
Yes, that would be the case. But still, I mean, you're telling me that going into this season, they make the playoffs and get one playoff win?
Oh, no. I'm saying that's great. I'm just saying I think it's a one and done. Either they're out or they win and then they're out. I think
I agree with you on. I agree with you on that. Yes, but we'll find out. We got to get through here, and we'll see if they do up in Minnesota.
Let's just say that'll be very exciting if they end up playing the Eagles.
For sure. Mike Tirico, Chris Collinsworth, Melissa Stark special on NBC for the second straight week. It's the Baltimore Ravens taking on the Cincinnati Bengals, and the Bengals a 9-point home favorite.
Now, we didn't have this news yet when we did the pick. Lamar, I mean, they didn't officially say it, but Lamar kind of put out a tweet. And Lamar's got to be careful because when he tweets out certain things, it gets him in trouble. But he basically said that his leg injury was nowhere near ready for play, essentially. So he's out. We can just say he's out.
Lamar Jackson is out per Lamar Jackson.
Essentially, yes. He announced his own injury news. So that pretty much, in my opinion, that pretty much eliminates them from any chance of winning. Now, I know Huntley has led them. He got hurt at one point. You're saying he's throwing, so it's a game time decision, right?
They're officially saying that this might be per Tyler Huntley, that Tyler Huntley is a game time decision for this game.
that you know what I say about game time decisions, though. Like it's very
Yeah.
very risky. Like
Mhm.
s- in my opinion, I could almost see Brown starting this game at this
Oh
point.
God, I hope not. I mean, that game last week with him throw. I mean, some of those throws he made last week
It was
were
bad.
hard. Yeah, they were hard to watch.
So I don't care if it's Huntley or Brown. I don't think they're beating the Bengals. Joe Burrow needs to be considered for a top 3 MVP this year, even maybe top 2 MVP this year. The way he's played now, Chase is back. He's healthy. They seem to be all healthy. I don't know. You are not very high on the Ravens, though.
I'm high on the Ravens defense, but I'm just not high on their offense at all. And I think that the Raven defense can stop Cincinnati, but really to me it ultimately comes down to who's starting this game, because if this is Brown, then I think Cincinnati wins by at least 10.
Wait, do we have to pull out the method? Joe Burrow?
Well, I mean, if you're going by quarterbacks, this is Joe Burrow every day and twice on Sunday night.
Right. I mean, I will say though, the 9-point line is big. It's big, even with whoever's starting on for this game. But now that Lamar is out, that pretty much nailed it for me. So originally I had the Ravens covering and the Bengals winning.
Yeah.
I now have to change that partially with Lamar out officially, and it looks like Huntley's a game time decision that makes it worse. I'm taking the Bengals to cover.
Yeah, I think the crazy thing is this could be the lowest scoring game of the week, but it has like 23-13, 27-17 written on, and that's why I'm going to take Cincinnati minus the 9. And yeah, that is a big number to lay, but it's at home. And again, just the Ravens offense, I mean, there's just nothing to it right now. And their defense, I think, could give Burrow some fits, but through the air and stuff, I mean, they're so much better on offense that
they have a cushion.
Yeah. I mean, again, you want to be concerned about the Bengals offensive line with this Raven defense. That would be a legitimate concern, but I mean, their offense is it's so hard.
And on top of that, I know again we're going to save the offseason for a couple weeks from now, but how do you bring Lamar back? He's been hurt 2 straight years.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. It's 2 straight years with Lamar missing significant time. Remember, this was supposed to be originally what was reported on this was a 1 to 3 week injury with Lamar. Well, he has not now practiced in 17 straight days, and this is now pushing 6+ weeks.
I mean, how the heck do you trust this guy? First of all, he's upset because of the Deshaun Watson contract.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone and their mother knows that basically the Browns effed up, giving him a fully guaranteed $300 million contract. You can't use that. You can't use it as a barometer because, again, it's the one outlier in the average of all the quarterbacks being signed. Now that he's been hurt 2 straight years, if I were the Ravens, I would franchise. I'd franchise tag him, and if he holds out, that's on him.
Yeah.
What leverage does he have? He has none.
He really doesn't when you look at it. I mean, you're right.
So, what do you do?
It's funny because when we get to the off season, it's going to be almost like our first year of Game On, where we were talking about the quarterback carousel. There's going to be a lot of moving parts with the quarterback position.
Tua also. You can't pay Tua. I mean, technically, I think he has one more year left.
I think he's got one more, yes.
But if I'm the Dolphins, how do you bring him back?
It's hard to. You got to make sure that he's healthy first and foremost before he even can come back on the field.
Tom said it on the last episode of ETB. He said he needs to have a talk with his loved ones, his family, and be like, "Is this worth it for me after 3 concussions in 1 year? Yeah. You could die from having 1 concussion, let alone 3."
And you know, we were very, very fortunate with DeMar Hamlin, but we don't want to be going down that road again in a different way with another player. So, I don't know. I don't know what it is. And Baltimore, I tell you what, Baltimore could be that team that could be on the decline next season when you look at it, because I
agree with you.
Right? I mean, you still have the Ravens, you have the Steelers, who still ended up winning 9 games this year, and the Browns maybe with a full year of Deshaun, and they still got some pieces there. I mean, they could turn it around too. So really, the outlier in that is Baltimore. And if you're going, Tyler Huntley's not a bad backup, but I don't know if I could just see him starting every week.
He's not a starter.
I think he's a good backup. I just don't know if he's a starter. They're a guy, but you know what though? You need that in the NFL. Every team needs a capable backup as much as they need a great starter. You need a very good backup. Look at all the guys that we saw playing this year.
Well, I think we just had a freak amount of injuries this year, which is it was like an unheard of amount of injuries this year.
Well, that's like I look at your Jets. I mean, Mike White. I think he's a great backup. I don't think he's a starter. I think he's a great backup though.
I could see him ending. Don't throw stuff at me as a Giant fan, but I could see Mike White going in as a backup in a Giant uniform.
Well, I don't know why would you give up on him though?
Well, I might not care in a couple of weeks when I don't root for the Jets anymore. But
oh, geez, nice little teaser there for empty the bench in 3 weeks or so.
But I don't know. I think Mike White's going to get an opportunity somewhere else. I do.
I don't think he's a starting quarterback.
Well, no, I think as a backup somewhere.
Okay.
I can see the Saints as a backup situation.
Well, then you're basically thinking that Zach Wilson is going to be on this team next year.
I have no idea. I think they're going to clean house, to be honest, with their quarterback situation. I think Derek Carr is going to come in there. That's where I see it at that point.
The interesting thing with that is, they did fire. Mike.
They parted ways with LaFleur, which basically means they didn't want to say they fired him.
Yeah, and you know what though, that Jet team that was good enough that they can win 8-9 games at least next year.
But you know what, with LaFleur, I could see him going with his brother in Green Bay. I could see him going to the Rams. Mike LaFleur is actually wanted by a bunch of teams.
I could see that.
I think he's actually a good OC. The Jets was just a bad situation.
And by the way, just to wrap this up here too, I'll make a Jet connection with this too. I don't think Lamar Jackson's a fit in Gang Green. I just don't see that.
I don't want him there.
I mean, they're going to go get somebody, but I don't think Lamar is the answer there. I don't think Lamar is a good fit with that team too. And again, if he's on the downside, we'll see. By the way, Hank is saying that he's taking the Bengals because Tom would haunt him in his sleep otherwise. So yes, we are not going to. We will not disrespect the Bengals here, Tom. Cincinnati minus the 9 on Sunday night in this one, and then this is probably my favorite matchup of the week on Monday night, Nick. It's a Joe Buck, Troy Aikman, Lisa Salter special on ESPN as Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys are laying 2.5 points going to take on Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at Raymond James Stadium.
I could just see Stephen A. Smith right now. I could just see it. When they lose, he's just going to be laughing all over First Take, all over ESPN social media feeds. I'm going to stick with my pick because I still believe it. I'm taking the Bucs in an upset special over the Cowboys. Dak Prescott has looked like one of the worst quarterbacks in the second half of the NFL season. I think he's had like 14 interceptions and a fumble. I mean, like, I don't know what's going on with him. They looked better with Cooper Rush than they did with Dak Prescott. I don't know. I'm scared for the Cowboys. I really am. They need to make a run. Now, I asked Tom the same thing that they asked on First Take, and they might have been over-exaggerating this partially, but they said that it's Super Bowl or bust for the Cowboys this year. What do you think about that first? Making the Super Bowl.
Doesn't it seem like it's always like that, though, with Dallas?
But I think there's logically, this is their best opportunity to get to the Super Bowl if you look at some of the situations.
Yeah, but I just don't know what Dallas is. I've never been high on them. And I mean, I've given them credit that they've turned this around. I mean, because especially after week 1, I said they were done when Dak was out. But Cooper Rush came in, did very, very well. Dak came back, did all right. Now he's been struggling big time here. This is such a tough call to make here in this spot. And I think this is really more about the Cowboys than it is about the Bucs in this pick. I am taking Tampa Bay plus 2.5 in an upset special. And again, it's not even because of the Bucs. And you know how many times I picked the Bucs this year. This is really more about the Cowboys and their problems. It wasn't even just Dak against Washington last week. I mean, look at how many times on special teams they messed up. Sam Howell looked like he was a starting quarterback against them last week. The Cowboys, Nick, it looked like the Cowboys didn't even want to play football last week against the Commanders. It was that bad. It was
Well,
that
because
ugly.
and the worst part is if they actually played some football, they wouldn't have been a 5th seed.
Yeah, and I'll even say this too, and I know the final score may not say it. They didn't even look that impressive against the Titans a couple of weeks ago when they won by 14 points.
And the Titans lost 8 in a row.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing. I actually think this is a worse matchup than if they actually played some football and got the higher seed. I don't know. Who would they have played? What were the other...
So if they could have...
Because they either had the 2, the 3, or the 5.
Right. So the 3 would have meant they would have played... Well, they would have been in Minnesota's spot, right? So they
you would have had to almost favor them in that matchup against Minnesota. Probably. It would have been a lot closer.
Yes.
And then who else? What was the other?
Could it have been? I'm trying to see. So it could have been that.
They wouldn't have played the Niners, would they?
I think there was a way they could have, but
I think that would have been a problem for them. I think.
Yeah, it's such a tough call here, but can't you just see Tom Brady?
That's why I'm going with the upsets. But how do you go against Tom Brady in the playoffs? Against Dak?
The question's going to be, is that offensive line going to be able to give Brady time to throw the ball?
That bingo. You just said it. That's the problem. He's going to get knocked over a bunch of times.
Yeah, that's been the biggest problem with the Buccaneers this year. Has been that offensive line has not
and
been
injuries,
healthy. And yeah, it's not been healthy. And you know what? Brady needs time, and that's been part of his great legendary success. Has been that offensive line's been able to help, and we've seen that. How many times did we see that in New England, and even in his first year there in Tampa? So
also wide receiver injuries in Tampa
hasn't helped.
That's sad though that we think that they're still better than Dallas. Now, for Jerry,
I don't know if they're better than Dallas, but I think because how bad Dallas is playing, that's why I think the play here is Tampa.
And for Jerry, and we started at the top with this with Jerry. Basically, if he's a Mike McCarthy job, come on, you're going to tell me? I think this is his 4th year in Dallas.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, there was a statistic out there that by the 3rd year as a coach, you've made it to like the Super Bowl or something. There's like a statistic for every 3rd year you're a head coach of a team. Yeah. They haven't even sniffed the 2nd round. No, I don't think, have they?
They have not made a deep run in the longest time.
He's got to go. I think he's got to go if they lose this game.
Well, we were talking about it with Brandon Staley earlier. I think
if he's got to go, McCarthy's got to go.
Yeah, well, we'll find out. That's what's going to be the topic of conversation on Game On and Empty the Bench next week. Could be the coaching thing if it is indeed a fact a Charger and a Cowboy upset here. But I'm going to take the Bucs, and maybe even the Cowboys win by 2. And you know what? That's still good enough. It just has that kind of feeling to it too. So yeah, I'm taking the Buccaneers in an upset. Hank's also taking the Bucs plus the 2.5 to close out Wild Card Weekend.
We were all pretty much in lockstep for the most part.
Not many differences, and that's kind of the case. You know, there's 2 things you don't really see in postseason picks here. You don't see the lines fluctuate that much day to day, and you don't see that many differences. And that's the case here this weekend. So,
wait, so where would that leave us? So the way we picked, where would we be next round? Do you know where we'd be?
What do you mean, like in terms of
the matchups?
Oh, I didn't do that because there's so many things that have to happen for us to get there. But I didn't tally them if that is indeed the case. But
I'm saying is we took the Niners. And we all took the
Niners to win, just not cover. Let's do this here. So we all took the Niners. I took the Chargers. You guys took Jacksonville. Hank took Minnesota. You took Minnesota too. I took the Giants. We all took Buffalo. We all took Cincinnati, and we all took Tampa.
We're pretty much in lockstep for the most part.
Yeah. And
That doesn't normally happen.
Yeah, and a lot of NFL headlines now for other teams as well, and we'll find out. And then next week will be divisional weekend with 4 games, and then after that, Nick, it'll be 2 more weeks, 3 games, 1 champion. 3
That's
games,
scary.
2 weeks, 1 champion. That's it.
I can't believe how fast this season went.
Every year it goes by quicker and quicker. That's absolutely. We'll find out what happens. Of course, we'll react to this next week. Now, hopefully, I will be able to join Hank on Game On Tuesday.
Hold on.
Oh,
Breaking news.
Just on the way out. Let's hear.
Diana Rossini just said Sean McVay informed members of the Rams organization that he will be staying on as the head coach of the Rams.
So Sean McVay will stay there. So there are 5 head coaching opportunities right now. 5 head coaching opens.
That's major, by the way.
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised.
I thought he was going to go out. I really did.
So now the question will be, will there be any other staff changes there with the Rams going into next season? And you know what? The Rams will be an interesting team next year because talk about a team that was decimated by injuries this year. They were one of them. I mean, a bunch of guys. I mean, especially somebody who picked the Rams to possibly go back to the playoffs this year, and they just were not healthy at all. And, there are teams that aren't healthy, but when it's your star players and you can't do anything about it, that's what it comes down to. So a bit of a nugget there to end this Football Friday. So again, I'm hoping I'll be back on Tuesday with Hank for Game On. There's been some work and personal stuff that's coming up in the way, so hopefully I'll be there. I know the week after I will not be there. We'll be doing a little bit of a flip-flop. So at the bare minimum, I will hopefully be back Tuesday, and then obviously next Friday for the divisional weekend pick. So the best thing to do, folks, is follow us across our social media channels on Facebook and Twitter at Game On ETB, at Instagram Game On _ETB, our YouTube channel at youtube.com/ETB Network. Leave us a like, hit that notification bell, and subscribe to us so you know when all of our stuff's going to come out and such. And also check out our new website at etbpodcast.com, where you can check out all of our stuff, including our blogs and everything else. That site is up and going, and we are just getting started. So, Nick, enjoy the football weekend. Should be a very, very interesting one. I know I'm not going to get a lot of sleep, but you know what? You don't have weekends like this in sports. So, cherish it and enjoy.
Yeah, football playoffs are the best time of the year. Don't get me wrong. We're not offending baseball or NBA or NHL, especially because Hank's not here. NHL playoffs.
Yeah.
But NFL playoffs are the non-sleep time of the year.
Absolutely. And again, 2 more weekends, and then it's going to die off from there because then we'll only have 3 games over 2 weeks for 1 champion. And then after that, you don't get a crazy weekend until probably March. But nevertheless, that's what's going on. So for Nick Morganson and Hank Indictor, I'm Johnny Montalbano. Everybody enjoy Super Wildcard Weekend, and we'll talk to you again next week.